Today we are going to be dividing decimals. Before we get into dividing decimals, I would like you to do this warm-up problem. I would like you to divide 945 by 15. You can hit pause while you work this problem. Alright, you should have gotten the answer 63. If you did not get the answer 63, please ask your parents, a sibling, or come to tutorials and get help on how to do long division. You need to be able to do long division in order to divide decimals. Okay, let's get started on our lesson. Dividing a decimal number by a whole number. First thing we're going to do is draw a picture of what it means to divide a decimal number. We're going to divide 2 and 4/10 divided by 2. This is a picture of 2 and 4/10. The big blocks represent one whole, so we have 2 wholes, and the skinny towers represent a tenth each, and we have 4/10. Now we know that dividing means to put into equal groups. Since we are dividing by 2, we are going to put these into equal groups. And after we put them into equal groups, we see that each group has 1 and 2/10 in it. So 2 and 4/10 divided by 2 is 1 and 2/10. So that's a picture of what dividing is. Now I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that without drawing a picture. So the steps are, and I want you to write this in your spiral notebook, dividing a decimal by a whole number. The steps are, place the decimal point directly above the decimal point in the dividend. Step 2, you divide. That's all there is to it. So here's an example that I want you to copy in your notes. 6 and 8/10 divided by 2. Step 1, put the decimal in the quotient or in your answer directly above where the decimal point is in the dividend. And step 2, you divide like you've always divided. And so 6 and 8/10 divided by 2 is 3 and 4/10. Copy this down in your notes. Remember, you can hit pause. Right after you get this copied, I want you to practice some problems on your own. The first problem I want you to practice is 7 and 5/10 divided by 3. Hit pause, and once you get an answer, you can hit play to see if you are correct. Okay, step 1, put the decimal directly above the decimal in the problem. Step 2, you divide like you've always divided, and you should have gotten the answer 2.5. Okay. Sometimes you need to add zeros and keep going until you get no remainder. When you are dividing decimals, you keep going until you get a remainder of 0. Let me show you what I mean by that. If we take the number 3 and 9/10 and divide it by 4, step 1, you put the decimal in the quotient, put the decimal in the answer directly above the decimal in the dividend, directly above the decimal and the number that you're dividing. Then you divide like you've always divided. And when I do that, I get a remainder of 3. We are not finished until we get a remainder of 0. Because there is a remainder, we're going to put a 0 on the end of our dividend. Now we know that does not change the value of 3.9. We can add as many zeros after the decimals without changing the value. We're going to put a 0 at the end of the dividend, bring the 0 down, and then 44. How many times does 4 go into 30? It goes in there 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. We still have a remainder. So we're going to add another 0, and we're going to keep going. We bring our 0 down. Now we say, how many times does 4 go into 20? It goes in there 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And now we have a 0 as a remainder. Once you are finished when you get a remainder of 0. Copy this down, and then you can practice the problem on your own. Here's the problem I want you to work on. Now you'll notice that 10 does not have a decimal, so what do we do when there's no decimal? You put a decimal after the number, and you keep going until you get a remainder of 0. Hit pause and work this problem. And you should have gotten 2 5/10 as your answer. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's look at this table. 1,000 divided by 25 equals 40. 100 divided by 2.5 equals 40. 10 divided by 0.25 equals 40. 1 divided by 0.025 equals 40. Do you see a pattern here? Hit pause while you think about it. What I'm hoping you noticed is that each time the decimal was moved, the same number of positions in both numbers was moved both in the divisor and in the dividend. So what we can learn from this is when a decimal is moved in the same direction and the same number of place values in both the dividend and the divisor, the quotient, or the answer to a division problem, remains the same. We're going to use this fact to help us divide decimals by decimals. So in dividing a decimal by a decimal, the first step is to move the decimal in both numbers so that you are dividing by a whole number. So let's look at the problem 1.71 divided by 0.9. We want that 0.9 to be a whole number 9. So we're going to move the decimal to the right one position. If we move it in one number, we must move it in the other number. Now we've changed our problem from 1.71 divided by 0.9 to 17.1 divided by 9. Now we follow the steps that we did in the other types of problem. We have 17.1 divided by 9. We put the decimal in the answer, and we divide like we were dividing before. Okay, so I want you to practice this problem. I would like you on your own to divide 0.68 by 0.2. Hit pause. Okay, let's see if you got the same answer I did. Because we want to divide by a whole number, we need to move the decimal to make 0.2 two whole. What you do to one number, you must do to the other. So we're going to move the decimal from 0.68 to 6.8. Then we put the decimal in the answer directly above the decimal in the dividend, and we divide, and we get 3.4. Okay, class, that's all we have for today. If you have any questions about this, please come see me before school, and I will be glad to help you. Thank you so much for getting on and doing your homework and taking good notes. See you tomorrow.